In conjunction with Bravo Programs of America, I would like to present a tutorial on navigating health insurance. My name is Samantha Lewis, and I am a supporter of Bravo Programs of America. So, you may feel invincible now. Folks of all ages have that moment that if you haven't had any health concerns or any big emergencies, you can wonder, why does it matter? And why should I think that health insurance is important and having coverage? So that's what I'm going to talk about today. A couple of the main options that are available, the pathways, and really understanding that, emergencies can happen in a split second. So we not only want to cover ourselves from that emergency perspective, but having comprehensive health coverage encourages you to seek preventive care too, that can save you money in the long run and stress on your body to catch things early, where they can be handled sooner and hopefully more successfully. So you may be wondering, what do I do to qualify? Who's this for? How do I apply? And really the mindset behind Medicaid and the marketplace, which are the two main pathways that I'm going to talk about today, is that everyone has the right to access tools to help them be healthy and successful. So the first path that we're going to talk about is Medicaid. Now, from state to state, Medicaid can have a lot of different names. And in Michigan, you'll hear it called Healthy Michigan, My Child for the kiddos, My Bridges. There's a whole bunch of names floating around, but ultimately they all end up coming together to be Medicaid. And that is, of course, a program that's funded both by our Michigan state dollars and federal dollars, and ultimately with a goal to support those who are in poverty through the adversity of that time in their lives. So it's not meant to be used forever. It's meant to be something of support. So, and you'll hear me talk quite a few times about that comprehensive health coverage. And that focus is again on that preventive care because that reduces the costs on all fronts in the long term. Now, Healthy Michigan expanded Medicaid because of the Affordable Care Act and what that coverage needs to include. So, anyone who is either on marketplace care or Medicaid care has to have 10, those plans have to have 10 essential health benefits. And there's a whole long list of what that includes, but the idea being that you're really promoted to get that preventative care. So get that typical blood work that can see if your cholesterol is in line, if your blood sugar is in line, prenatal and postnatal care for mom and baby, mental health care, substance abuse care. So all of those things that can help you be successful. So, and of course, these are two main pathways if you don't have employer coverage. So, if you are fortunate enough to have a job that offers you health coverage, chances are it's going to be more extensive than some of these other plans for a less expensive cost if it's coming out of your check pre-tax. So, if you're not having care through an employer, that's where these two pathways become more relevant. So, who qualifies? So, Medicaid is needs-based and it's a focus on that lack of income and assets. And sometimes Medicaid and Medicare can be confused. Now, Medicare is typically for people over 65, though there's some circumstances that can be for those who are younger. And sometimes Medicare and Medicaid can overlap and work together. But for the most part, Medicaid is impacting children and adults under 65. And those folks are low income, and there's a focus on income and assets. So the reality is that things are not necessarily going well in life if you qualify. So there's some key income thresholds. The reality being that the focus is on if your current circumstances, your current income doesn't support you getting the coverage on your own, So Medicaid, Healthy Michigan, My Child will fill that gap to set you up for success. So pregnant women and children have a sliding scale, a little bit of a higher threshold for qualifying. But if you're in that adult time frame of 19 to 64, typically that's tied to the federal poverty level. So if you're a single person household, that's around 21,500 a year. And of course, for a family of four, that ends up being right around 44,000 a year. And that federal poverty level calculation changes every year. And ultimately, this is all tied back to your tax return. Now, there's a couple ways to apply. Online is, of course, the fastest, relatively speaking. And all of these methods are really to get that initial gut reaction of if you may qualify. And you'll see there I've got new Michigan bridges, and that's directly to Medicaid with the state. But then we also have healthcare.gov. That's the Affordable Care Act marketplace, sometimes known as Obamacare. And that's meant to work in tandem together so that if you are meeting one of those thresholds, that the at least that's your first step of saying, hey, this income is maybe at a place where this person perhaps qualifies for Medicaid. But keep in mind that if they say you may be eligible, that doesn't mean that's a guarantee. You're going to get assigned to a caseworker with the state of Michigan, and there's lots more paperwork and verifications that are likely to happen before you gain approval. And those things are checked on a regular basis. So this is where we transition if you have an income and assets that are higher than those thresholds. That's where the health insurance marketplace comes in. So the reality of the marketplace is it's not a separate government insurance. These are the same plans that are available privately. The only difference is the price that's available to you as a consumer because of a tax subsidy that really works like a real-time tax credit or coupon to lower the price of those plans. So it's that second main pathway that's outside of employer coverage. And again, all of these plans have to have those 10 essential health benefits. So if you're having an emergency and you need to go to the hospital, they have to accept your insurance there. They can't deny you because you're out of network. That pre and postnatal care for mom and baby, that preventative blood work and visits and well woman, well man visits to make sure that health is top of mind. And again, these are for folks that don't have a significant income to cover that plan themselves at the essentially retail price, but they don't have a job-based health plan or they're not covered by someone else in the household, like a spouse or a parent. So it's kind of that second building block of affordability. Now, unlike your auto or home or motorcycle insurance, you can't change plans at any given time throughout the year. There's two main periods, the fixed annual open enrollment period, that's from November 1st to December 15th every year. And if you're using a marketplace plan or don't have it through an employer, that's the window for everyone throughout to make their decisions. So, for example, the folks that I talked to this November, they're going to be making decisions for the year starting January 1st and onward. And a lot of times when people are picking a plan, they think that that's permanent and what they're going to have to keep forever. The reality is it's a 12-month long decision at most. Now, there's also special enrollment periods. So these are based on qualifying life events. So, like moving, um, getting a job, losing a job, getting married, getting divorced, having a baby, basically any circumstance that's going to either cause you to lose your coverage or needing to change because you're now out of your planned service area, those open up those windows. But it is important that when those things happen, to be having those conversations to make a decision fairly quickly because those windows, as of 2025, are only open for 60 days to make a change throughout the year. Alrighty, so you're probably thinking, okay, do I qualify? Do I not qualify? The reality is those real-time tax credits, they lower that monthly premium cost, but it's based on a myriad of factors, not just the income and assets. So, and it's ultimately all tied back to your tax return. So, what's your age? Are you filing single or jointly with a spouse? Do you have any dependents? What's your income? So, there's a smaller piece in there as well. And the nice thing about healthcare.gov is it does coordinate with the state level Medicaid programs. So if you're filling out your application and start on healthcare.gov, based on the information that you put in there, it's going to say, hey, this person might qualify. And instead of saying, hey, you need to go fill out another application, they actually just send all that information directly to the state. You'll get assigned a caseworker, and that gets the wheels started automatically. Now, the other thing, and not all plans on the marketplace are called qualified health plans. Those are plans that coordinate with your other insurance coverage, like your auto. And if you've talked to your auto insurance agent, they've likely asked you if you want unlimited PIP or limited PIP, or if you want to waive it. And you have those options available to you if you have a qualified health plan. And as of 2025, that's a plan that has less than a $6,000 deductible. Now, you can reduce what you'll pay up front. If you reduce or waive PIP, and certainly that's something to talk about with your auto insurance agent. But most of the time, I recommend that the savings in the long term is not worth it. If the worst were to happen, you'd want to have that unlimited coverage so that in case you were permanently disabled, there's still resources for you. Now, before you apply, because some of the questions can be confusing as you're going through the application. So before you even start the application, it's good to understand how your household files your taxes. And you may be thinking, Samantha, I've never filed my taxes before. And that's okay. Just understanding what income is coming in. If you have a consistent amount on your paycheck, that's a number that we can extrapolate out to figure out what that annual income would be. Now, if you have a job with inconsistent wages or you're working a couple jobs, that's where we can work together to figure out our best estimate of what your income is going to be. And sometimes it's a bit like looking into a crystal ball, but we want to be as accurate as possible because if we're not accurate and you end up making a lot more than we estimated, you may have to pay back some or all of that tax credit that you received to make the health insurance more affordable. Now, on the other hand, if we estimate too high when you file your taxes, you can get some of that money back too. But if you're having to pay some back, it can feel like a penalty, but there's not an extra penalty. Even if you made $1 million, the most you would ever pay is that retail price of the premium, which is basically just the monthly cost of insurance. So again, you're probably thinking, okay, I kind of get what you're saying, but that was a lot to take in, and I'm sure there's a lot more to it. And it really depends on situation to situation of what's going on in your household from an income perspective, from a house size perspective in terms of how many people are in your household, of what you qualify for. So of course, you don't have to remember all of this. This is what health insurance brokers like me are here for. So we provide that clarity and confidence so you can be making a confident decision in what you're choosing to get. And the reality is the most important lesson that I want you to take away from this is to not wait to get covered. While a lot of these plans are focusing on your physical health, if the worst were to happen, and you're still alive, which is usually the metric that I'll usually grade plans on, is not just the kind of inconvenient things about how much a copay is, but really what are the truly devastating things that if the worst were to happen, what's your financial exposure? And if you haven't built up a comfortable nest egg yet, that can be really scary to think about how much um, you might be owing into the thousands of dollars. But the reality is, if you aren't covered, you don't want your first financial interlude into adulthood to be a medical bankruptcy because medical bills are the number one cause of bankruptcies in the US. So I like to use health insurance to build that financial health as well. So again, my goal is for you to feel educated and empowered. And usually the way that conversation goes when I talk one-on-one with people is starting not so much with the budget, but who are your doctors? If there's someone that you've seen your whole life and you trust them and you want to keep seeing them, we're not going to even look at plans that they don't take because it doesn't make sense to interrupt that relationship. Then we go on to the budget for the expected expenses. And then, of course, that worst case scenario, just so you can go into the year with your eyes wide open of what you're covered for and what you're not or what the chances are. So I'm of course here anytime. I'm including my phone and email here. Happy to be a resource for you as you navigate the wild world of health insurance. Thank you.